What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the SuperDraft Sunday Study for Week 18 of the NFL regular season. I'm here alongside my good pal. We've been here 18 weeks now. Vlad Sedler at RotoGut on Twitter. The Fab Whisperer himself. I see you in those baseball streets early in 2022 here, but we got one more week to close out NFL. So, Vlad, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. It's the final week of the season, and I'm gonna miss football greatly. Obviously, other ways that will keep us occupied, but just that sweat, that feeling of that up and down all day Sunday. Obviously, part of us won't miss it, but that first week, when the season's over, when the Super Bowl's done, we're gonna be like, man, really miss those Sundays.
Yeah, and I mean a lot of action on tap today. Obviously, the first Week 18 in NFL history here. So we'll talk through all of it. We've got some weather concerns. We've got some inactive concerns. Plenty of teams not playing for anything today. So as we all saw on yesterday's 2-game slate, some guesswork maybe to be involved with some of these teams. Yep. Seeing Dallas play their guys into the fourth quarter last night. Philly not playing anybody at all. So I know that made for some wacky results last night, but let's go ahead and jump into it here. But before we get started, just want to remind everybody, again, we are presented by FTNDaily.com here. So you can sign up at FTN Daily with the code FTNTV. That'll get you 15% off any package there at FTN. But the SuperDraft-oriented content at FTN is all free for you to consume, whether it's NFL content, NBA content, or any other sport that SuperDraft offers. That content is always free at FTNDaily.com. So if you haven't signed up for SuperDraft yet, you can head over to superdraft.io, get registered and sign up. And when you do, use the promo code FTN, and on any deposit of $100 or more, SuperDraft will give you $100 in bonus funds. So pretty good offer there, Vlad. Great way to start your bankroll, start your SuperDraft experience. And again, if you're new to SuperDraft, there's more than one game mode here that we like to break down. Obviously, your traditional DFS is with a salary cap. SuperDraft, the main game mode here is going to use multipliers instead of that salary cap. But there's another game mode here that is kind of fun. We've been messing around with it here on the Sunday Study all year, and it's called Super 15. Okay, so I'll pull up the grid. For those of you that are unfamiliar, you get this 5x5 grid of players and $15 in salary to build your best lineup, and you can enter it in all kinds of contests over there. I believe there's now multi-entry tournaments for Super 15 as well. So Vlad, one last time, let's do our Super 15 thing. When you look at this Week 18 grid, we see the little Braxton Berrios, unfortunately, went out midweek, but some other guys maybe that aren't going to play the full game. Looking at Aaron Rodgers up top there. I think there's some good values here. So when you look at this grid here in Week 18, what stands out?
I mean, one thing that really stands out to me is Taysom Hill at the $3 mark. Just getting a quarterback with the rushing floor, with the possibility of multiple scores, whether through the air or on the ground, I think is a really solid pick there for $3. Over 20 base points both the times he played Atlanta last year. Obviously, a little bit of a different scenario, and it's been a year has passed, but defense is very similar. Outside of one strong cornerback, they have there in Terrell. There's really nothing to worry about. Taysom Hill is a really nice value at $3. And then my sort of contrarian one here is Ramondre Stevenson for $1. And for whatever reason, just since early part of the week, seeing how Damian Harris is really going to be needed for the playoffs, and he's got the hamstring issue. Sounds like he'll be fine. Sounds like he'll play, but there's really no reason to push him. Ramondre can do an absolutely fantastic job. And at $1, I think it's a very strong play on this grid today.
Yeah, I love the Ramondre call, man. That's a great one. And I think too, like you look at the $2 level, it's almost tougher. Like we know Jonathan Taylor up top is going to be the chalk, right? Especially with some guys around him. Aaron Rodgers maybe not going to play the full game. The next level down, Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams. So like less options up top to get different. I think at that $2 level, I'm liking Rashad Penny. Not the easiest matchup in the world going up against the Cardinals, right? But he's been great when he's gotten the work. And you've also got Amon-Ra St. Brown right there from the Lions, who's been, I mean, season long. He was a league winner for a lot of season long managers and has been great, obviously, for DFS purposes as well. So I think that's where we're getting different today, is that $1 and $2 range, as you mentioned. Again, we'll talk about JT when we get to the running back multipliers, I'm sure. He's one of the many players that are going for some records today, maybe some contract incentives for other guys. And certainly we know the Colts need a win against the division rival Jaguars today to get into the playoffs. So, good luck on your Super 15 grids. We'll go ahead and move into the multiplier plays, for the week. And we'll start, as always, one last time with the quarterback position. Vlad, I know you've been pretty darn sharp with some of the value quarterbacks on SuperDraft this season. We've got a myriad of options there, but we mentioned the teams that are playing to get in or improve their seeding, etc. So there's options on both ends of the spectrum here today. Where are you starting at quarterback?
Starting at quarterback on the lower end of the spectrum, not the value side, really Kyler Murray, 1.1x. This is just a fantastic game environment, at least for Arizona, playoff implications here. And Seattle showed that they can push it a little bit. This probably not Russ Wilson's last game, might be Pete Carroll's. I don't know. There's something going on, but if Seattle doesn't just lie down, which I don't think they will, this should be a competitive shootout. And so Kyler Murray 1.1 is a pretty solid pick. I'm all right with Russell Wilson on the other end, 1.25, a bit more of a contrarian play because you've got all those mid-range guys. I think a lot of people are going to go towards the running quarterbacks in the middle. Taysom Hill at 1.3 and Tyler Huntley 1.45x. Probably the weather there isn't too great in Baltimore, but those two guys I think is where people are going to go. And then to differentiate, it's going to be the Case Keenums of the world, 1.8x. We know that's somebody that our three-time millionaire maker winner, Mr. Two Gun, is on. So 1.8x, if who knows how much Chubb plays, so maybe he does well. Brandon Allen, I think I'm lesser on him than I was earlier in the week. I don't really see any reason to go there unless you really want to get in your Taylor's, Cups, and all the 1x guys. And then my sneaky play, and this one may sound crazy, but it's Andy Dalton, 1.6x. No playoff. No playoff implications here, and obviously a bad offensive line against a good defensive one. But they're going to have to throw the ball a lot to be able to keep up with Minnesota. Minnesota is got their full crew on board with Dalvin Cook now, a couple weeks removed from dealing with COVID. Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne, basically everybody but Thielen. So Chicago's going to have to push it to keep pace, and at 1.6x, you might get a little bit of a surprise there.
Yeah, that is going to be a low-owned contrarian play, but I think that, you laid out a pretty strong case there. The 1.6x certainly going to be lower owned than some of the other values, the other backup quarterbacks coming in today that you mentioned. And I don't think we differ too much here at the position this week, Vlad. I think Kyler's my favorite guy. If we're going to spend up right to the lower multiplier close to the floor, that 1.1x, you could also go to Josh Allen at that floor 1x multiplier. Again, great matchup for the Bills against the Jets, and they do need a win here. So I like that. But then I think I'm mostly skipping over the popular, the Taysom Hills, the Huntleys. Those guys are certainly fine. I worry, and again, maybe this is some bias. You see the jersey over my shoulder. I don't know how well Tyler Huntley is going to do against that Steelers defense. They've actually done pretty well against Lamar Jackson when he's been out there during his career. Obviously, the Steelers, when they're able to blitz and get pressure on the quarterbacks, especially there in Baltimore, they have some success. So I think in tournaments, I'm ending up more on, and this is because I think I've found success on some of your higher multiplier plays you've given out as the season has gone along. Case Keenum, Brandon Allen, who you mentioned. The one guy I wanted to ask you about, Green Bay playing Detroit today. Nothing to play for. Apparently, Aaron Rodgers is going to get out there under center, I believe, for at least a snap, right? How long he plays, I don't know. Do you have any more insight into that? And can we play Jordan Love at 1.85x?
I do think you can. For whatever reason, I haven't seen that game, the game Vegas total go down all that much. And this is with people anticipating Aaron Rodgers not really playing all that much. nor the other starters. So absolutely, I could see a scenario here where it is Jordan Love. I'm not going full bore with 150 lineups today. I made a kind of higher entries and a little bit more condensed of a player pool, so I don't have a lot of Jordan Love, but I can't blame anyone for going in that direction. We'll talk about another piece from that game that is at another position that I'm interested in, but absolutely, the difficult part is, and the reason why a lot of people may not go there, is figuring out who to pair him with. Is it Amari Rodgers, Quemanius St. Brown, or Juwan Winfrey? Really tough to say here, but again, we do know that Two Gun likes Juwan Winfrey, and Quemanius probably be a little bit more popular than him today.
Man, I feel like I'm back in best ball season here. We're sitting talking about Amari Rodgers, and you mentioned how the total hasn't changed much on that game, and looking at the Vegas board here of Week 18. All these totals are so far down from what you normally expect on a normal NFL week. So, gotta be able to target those fantasy points today. It's tough to pick on them. Like you look at Seattle, Arizona, that's the highest over under currently on the main slate. Then Green Bay, Detroit, Chicago, Minnesota, San Francisco, and the Rams kind of bringing up that second position there in terms of implied game totals. And you also mentioned some of the weather that's going on here. Just wanted to touch on 5 of these games here that I saw FTN's Tenacious D Jones paste into our premium Discord channel. Pittsburgh and Baltimore, freezing rain pregame. That will continue to a cold rain during the game. Cincinnati and Cleveland, 20-mile-per-hour winds with gusts over 30. Washington and the Giants, cold, likely wet. Jets and Buffalo that we talked about, 20-mile-per-hour sustained winds, gusts over 30, similar to that Cincinnati-Cleveland game. And then the Patriots and the Dolphins, chance for a shower or two. So all of those things good to keep in mind when we're looking at who we're targeting for Week 18. Let's talk running back now, Vlad. We talked Jonathan Taylor a little bit during that Super 15 grid breakdown. Start with JT and then talk to me about your running back position this week.
Yeah, I think because you do have a lot of options beyond the 1.4x mark, the 1.5x mark, guys that can put up 20 plus base points, you're really going to want Jonathan Taylor to have that game that everybody wants. Maybe not necessarily hit the 2,000 yard mark and get the 256 yards or whatever it is I believe he needs, but 180 yards, a couple of touchdowns, maybe a catch or two. I mean, that is that could play. That's going to be 30 plus base points and at 1x, and then we're talking. But either way, you're also sort of paying up for the floor. You kind of know that Jonathan Taylor is going to do pretty well, get in the end zone at least once, if not multiple times. And so it allows you to get a little different at some of your other positions, take a little bit of risk. So that's really the other thing. He provides a little bit of comfort there. And on top of that, could smash. So Jonathan Taylor, 1x, I think he's a base for cash games. I don't think he's an absolute must play, but I do think that 30 points is definitely within reason today.
Yeah, that doesn't differ too much for how I would approach Jonathan Taylor today in the position. Again, you're locking in probably the highest floor on the slate, certainly at the position when we're not accounting for multipliers. So on a day where you might have some guys in your lineup where you're feeling pretty shaky when the game's lock, to have that security there in Jonathan Taylor, it definitely does feel good. But I think there's plenty of ways to get different here at the position with your other running back spot. Obviously, you've got the flex position as well, so you could fit in 3 running backs to a lineup here. Dante Foreman, for me, Tennessee still playing to get that number 1 seed. They're 10.5-point road favorites here against their division rivals, the Houston Texans. I'll shout you out, Vlad. The Dante Foreman 1% play last week really came through for us. Not going to be 1% this week, but still holding that 1.45x multiplier. We were maybe going to see some Derrick Henry, but he's out. He's not coming back to the playoffs, so it's the Foreman show. Once again, I like him there at 1.45x. Then going AFC North here, surprise, surprise, I like Najee Harris this week. Again, to me, he's just like that high floor, high ceiling play here. The Steelers do need a win to keep their hopes alive. They would need the Colts to lose. Same thing with Baltimore on the other side. And I think Baltimore needs a little bit more help than Pittsburgh does. But Najee is just a guy that's going to get, I don't know what, we would be pretty surprised, especially with the weather concerns we talked about, if he gets less than 20 opportunities here. So picking up the extra 20% on his super draft points today is pretty attractive to me. Certainly as a pivot off of Jonathan Taylor, if you want to get different up top. Where else are you looking outside of Jonathan Taylor up top? Or then are you kind of looking to the guys who have the higher multipliers? Because we have plenty of those on the slate as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the mid-range, Devin Singletary is still a fantastic pick. I mean, earlier in the week, I had some concern of just the way kind of things break out when somebody becomes chalk coming off a bunch of good games that they end up failing. And of course, the way that he doesn't get there at 1.4x is, if he doesn't hit the 100-yard bonus and he doesn't get in the end zone, it's absolutely possible. Maybe Josh Allen runs them in. We saw them each, run a couple times last week in. But with the high wins, with the high implied total for Buffalo and him getting the bulk of the work, I just see that being a very strong play. Sonny Michel, I think I'm lower on than the field at 1.3x. Cam Akers is going to get mixed in there a little bit. And just the way this game might turn into more of a shootout. So I like a little bit more on the wide receivers. I mentioned Ramondre Stevenson, 1.4x. I think he's more of a deeper GPP play. For whatever reason, Damian Harris is out. I think he's a very easy play. James Conner at 1.3x. I wonder, I am curious because I do think he will be somewhat chalky. People are going to want to get the exposure on him. No Chase Edmonds. And really the concern is, are they going to let him? Is he healthy enough? Is he good to go? Because they're going to need him. They want him for the playoffs. How solid is he going to be? And maybe just, Kyler runs balls in, or he passes the ball and just doesn't really give him an opportunity for a smash game. And then on the lower end of the multipliers, Samaje Perine, I think I'm lower on than I was earlier in the week, but 1.8x, you're going to see a lot of people play him just on volume alone. Maybe they want to see some Chris Evans, so who knows? That was kind of my concern with Perine now in comparison to earlier in the week. So I like Keyshawn Vaughn, 1.75x. Obviously, on the flip side of that, the bust possibility, even at that price, if Brady just throws a bunch of touchdown passes to Gronk and Evans and, getting them all their, all the things they need, or maybe Le'Veon Bell kind of screws things up. But either way, as a core cash play, I do think Keyshawn Vaughn is great at 175x. And I'm going to throw this last one out here. Patrick Taylor, he's the guy that I referenced when you were talking about Jordan Love earlier. Why not just let him smash? Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, I don't think there's a reason to really get them going too much. Just let Patrick Taylor roll. Detroit, bottom 3 run defense. Let him go. 2.2x. I like him a little bit more than Samaje Perine and some of the other guys at the lower end.
Dude, I love the Patrick Taylor call. For me, this is supposed to be Kylan Hill week, but he's been on the IR for multiple months now. So Patrick Taylor 2x. I love that call, man. Are there any? We did get a question from the FTN Daily Premium Discord, and I see we have a couple others stacking up in the YouTube. Are there any kind of position agnostic here, just on the slate? Are there any guys with contract incentives that you think are close enough where they're going to push ownership towards that guy? Like maybe a Marvin Jones. I think he's 4 receptions away from like 50 grand or something like that. Are there any guys that stand out on the slate? Contract incentive wise that you're looking at?
Yeah, I mean, it's the ones where there is a connection beyond just on the field. And I think that's the case with Rob Gronkowski. And so, when you have a 1.1x multiplier, it really isn't all that tantalizing. But then when you see a couple of things that he needs to reach, that Tom Brady can absolutely get him there, and he's going to get $1 million out of it. I mean, not that he needs the money, but hey, it's nice. If Brady can make it happen, I think he will. So I think that's kind of a scenario where I'm good with. I think maybe Josh Allen pushes it to Stephon Diggs. Diggs, really hasn't had many 100+ yard games this season. Still really solid, but not the top, top 3 wide receiver that people were expecting. So I think some of those are strong. I think the Cooper Kupp, Kupp doesn't seem to care as much, but I think Stafford will, and I think Stafford's really going to try to get him the ball a lot. The smaller ones, like the Burkheads to get 125 grand, or Marvin Jones just for 4 catches. That's not really for a ceiling. There's not a lot to get there. They can get them those targets, and that isn't going to really move the needle much. If people gravitate towards those type of scenarios, like a Marvin Jones, by all means, let him go there, and we can focus on the ones that matter.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care how, like, even if he needed like one catch, two catch, like, that's not pushing me towards Marvin Jones. Trevor Lawrence has just been, I mean, the whole team's been abysmal this whole season.
Yeah.
I don't think that's where I'm pushing all my chips in here in week 18. Before we jump to wide receivers, our guy Charlie checking out the show again. We appreciate you tuning in. How about any love for Monty there in Chicago?
Yeah, I mean it's fine. I think there are other places, other sites that play him. The issue is it's we're dealing with half PPR here, and obviously David Montgomery has been fantastic, but the multiplier isn't the place where it's like amazing, right? It's 1.2 or 1.25, right? I believe. And he's going to need to get into the box a couple of times. Game script may not be going for them. I really foresee a scenario where Chicago is throwing it more. But yet, Charlie, I also got to trust your gut. If I recall correctly, we poo-pooed Mr. Mac Jones last week, or at least I did, and he went off. So, if you're making a lineup and you want to play Monty, go ahead and play him. I think I'm just going to be lesser on the field than most.
Makes sense to me. Let's talk wide receivers here. About 10 minutes left here on the Sunday study. And I guess we'll start up top. Cooper Kupp, right? We all know the yardage record is within reach. The receptions record is within reach for a single season. I know he has kind of poo-pooed the idea that his records, if he does set them, should be included with the others in these shorter seasons that we've had in the past. But to me, Vlad, I don't think that's really going to deter them. Again, the Rams need a win here. Like, they're going all out trying to win here in week 18. And I think, regardless of if that record was like what we're reaching for today or what the Rams are reaching for, rather, I think he would come close regardless, just what we've seen this guy do week to week. So I assume you're with me on Cooper Kupp as a strong floor play, very similar to Jonathan Taylor at the running back position. But where else are you looking at wide receiver?
Yeah, I mean, Cooper Kupp, obviously fantastic play. And I'm looking at him to get those 12 catches that he needs, 126 yards to break those two records. I think there is just going to happen naturally with Stafford just feeding him and they needing him to get the win. They really do have a fantastic connection. Justin Jefferson's a fine play, 1.15. I think you want to have some exposure to that game. I really like that game as a stack in general. Not really affected by weather there in the Dome. And just Chicago, Minnesota, I like that game for both sides. Cousins just added to the slate this morning, by the way, to SuperDraft now that he's off the COVID. Stephon Diggs, 1.2. I'm good with him. Deebo Samuel's another lower multiplier guy that I don't think anyone's going to play. He's going to come in under 5%. He smashed a couple of touchdowns against the Rams last time out. They're really going to need him. He's got Jimmy G back, most likely, from what I know. So Deebo Samuel going to be very underutilized, but at 1.1x, I think you could pop him into some Stafford stacks. And mid-range, this is where mostly people are going to be playing here. You got A.J. Brown, obviously, in a smash spot, 1.3x. Darnell Mooney, I'm a big fan of, 1.45x. Can't forget Jalen Waddle, 3 catches away from the rookie record there. I believe New England's slot corner is going to be out, so that's a good spot for him as well. And then Tyler Lockett, for whatever reason, it feels like it's going to be a Lockett week. Usually does well against Arizona, a decent matchup, so on board there. And then just kind of looking at the back end of the receivers, I think Gabriel Davis will be popular again at 1.75x. And then, other than that, I just got a gut on Ray McLeod, 1.95x, your boy. And really it is, Claypool hasn't done much all year. We've seen McLeod get 18 targets over the last couple of games. James Washington is out. The weather's going to stink, but maybe a lot of, the short passes. Deontay was asymptomatic, thankfully, so I think that's not going to affect his workload. He should be just fine. But I do think Ray McLeod finally gets in and scores his first receiving touchdown of the season this year.
Nice. We would love to see that in Pittsburgh. Ray's kind of been playing the Juju Smith-Schuster role without the blocking, right? Yeah. Just kind of the short passes. And we know Ben Roethlisberger, likely his last game today, can't really throw the ball more than like 10 to 12 yards. So I like the Ray call at 1.95x. We got a question from our guy T Panthers in the FTN Discord chat. One of our biggest super draft players over there in terms of our subs. He's asking, you mentioned Kirk Cousins added to the slate this morning with him coming off the COVID list. What do you think about a Cousins KJ Osborne stack? Osborne 1.5x. He says as a mini stack, how do you think about that to get off the Jefferson chalk?
I like it, and make sure you get Mooney in there, maybe Komet, who we'll talk about in a moment. But I think that's a good little one there. The thing about KJ Osborne, and I end up on him a lot, is he's really good. He's very talented. With Adam Thielen, obviously, there's been a big opportunity, and he's been delivering. He's been seeing 5+ targets. And the other thing is, sure, Justin Jefferson is essentially unguardable, but what if he isn't open all the time? What if Jalen Johnson is really sticking to him well, and Justin Jefferson just does not have that, that huge monster game? He didn't have it against Chicago earlier this season. And obviously we know for cousin stacks to really get there, you'll want to get Justin Jefferson in there. But because of the price and the fact that, Osborne does have, 80+ yards, couple touchdown upside, I do think he's a good play at 1.5x.
I like it. I'm pretty much with you. Like I like to try to find places where we can differ, but I think our player pools are pretty similar this week. You mentioned Gabe Davis, the 1.75x. I like that. If you want to stack him up with Josh Allen, I think Christian Kirk 1.4x. If you're trying to get a stack with Kyler, would be a good target there. And I do like AJ Brown in your non-Dante Foreman lineups. Again, trying to take advantage of that Houston matchup. But a quiet week last week for my guy AJ against the Dolphins. They were in control, ran the ball. We saw, I think, the Hilliard touchdown at the very end, just kind of rubbing it in the faces of the Dolphins. Anybody else for you from this wide receiver position to highlight, or are you ready to move on to tight end?
Yeah, I mean, jumping into tight end for me, it's really a pretty small player pool. I do like your boy Pat Freiermuth, 1.55x. Again, just feels like he's due for a touchdown. Yeah, Ben, I think, has a nice little rapport with him, but they won't get to continue that. So I think he'll kind of send him off on a nice little note there. Yeah. And then Rob Gronkowski, 1.1x, just the milestones there. I do think he gets there. Mark Andrews is probably going to catch a lot of balls today. I know they'll probably try to run a little bit more with Freeman and Latavius Murray, but I'm on board with Mark Andrews just in the stacks. If you're going to stack that game for whatever reason you think it goes off, that's the way he works. And then I think you'll see Zac Ertz pretty popular at 1.35x, probably the most popular on the slate. And then Cole Kmet. I did promise in my article what I think a lot of other people are thinking of the same way is because Cole Kmet has been such a big red zone guy, doesn't have a reception in the end zone or doesn't have a touchdown score, that it's going to happen today. At least we hope. It's going to be popular, but I'm fine with it, especially in my Dalton or my cousin stacks.
Yeah, I like it. You mentioned Gronk. The Muth obviously going to be on my list still at that 1.55x, and no Travis Kelce on the slate. So Mark Andrews, I think we've talked about that for a month, right? We don't care who's under center. Like we could, I think our buddy Javi Prolezzo could be starting under center for the Ravens, and I would still consider Mark Andrews even at that 1x. But the guy I guess I wanted to highlight before we move on to stacks is Zac Ertz. I talked about him last week, but still over his last 4 games, 10 targets a week and 6 red zone targets over those 4 games. So I think, hasn't put it all together yet with the touchdown and the receptions and the yards. But if he gets in the end zone, I think at the 1.35x multiplier, that could be a guy that pays off for you in a Kyler stack. So speaking of stacks, unless I'm missing somebody here at tight end that you want to touch on, you want to get to our top stacks here for week 18?
I think it's a good week to try to get away from general groupthink, because we saw it yesterday with that wild game with Dallas. At first they weren't supposed to play their starters, and then they did. Yeah. There's going to be all kinds of madness. You're going to see people that we haven't thought about just come up out of nowhere. So get a little comfy. Don't just go for the boring old Kyler, Kirk, Ertz, Metcalf stacks. Mix it up a little bit. Don't be afraid to fade a Tyler Huntley stack and that game in general, at least on that side of it. Don't be afraid to stack that one. Go for some of the different stuff. Matt Stafford stack with Cooper Kupp and whomever else is going to be very, very underutilized today. Dalton I talked about. I think that's another good one in that game environment. Just looking for good game environments. That's why I like Russell Wilson stacks with Lockett or Metcalf, and then some Arizona guys on the way back, maybe a James Conner. So that's the way that I like to do it. I don't want to go with the chalk and just, build for the heck of it. I want to get the games that smash, and those are the games in the good weather end. And in general, build today for the second frame of games. Those second frame of games, those are the ones that you really want to target, have a little bit of exposure to the early games, and then focus on the late ones.
Yeah, which is why I think my favorite stack on the day is going to be one of those Kyler stacks with either Christian Kirk or Zach Ertz going up against the Seahawks at home. Getting some news in here. Brandon Allen going to be without another weapon there for Cincinnati. T. Higgins inactive. CJ Uzama, the tight end, active here for Week 18. And before we get out of here, Vlad, we had one last question from our FTN subs. Our buddy Josh says, he's newer to football on SuperDraft. He's been having a lot of success in the NBA streets there with our SuperDraft content here at FTN. But he's asking, is stacking the QB and wide receiver necessary on SuperDraft since he's new to the platform?
Yeah, I mean, it depends what you're playing. I don't think it's necessary if you're focusing on cash games or some of the smaller tournaments. If you're playing a bunch of lineups in the red zone or some of the smaller contests that have 150 plus lineups, you do want to get stacky. At least have that quarterback wide receiver pairing. That's the commonality that we've seen throughout the season in winning lineups. You, for the most part, have a quarterback with the receiver or tight end in the game that really hits the optimal. So you do want to get that exposure in the tournaments, not as much so in the smaller ones in cash.
There you have it, Josh. Our time is up here on the SuperDraft Sunday Study. So as we wrap for the season, Vlad, I just want to thank you. I want to thank Javi, Joe, anybody else who came on the stream this season. It's been a blast. And before we get out of here, remind everybody, you can sign up at SuperDraft with the promo code FTN. Any deposit of $100 or more is going to get you $100 in bonus funds. And you can sign up at FTN Daily for all of our premium content. Any package, 15% off with the promo code FTN TV. All one word, and that's 15% off any package here at FTN Daily. If you are already an NFL subscriber at FTN Daily, Debro and Kyle headed live right now to break down the slate, leading you up to lock here in the last week of the regular season. Vlad, it's been fun, man. I appreciate it. Hope we get to hook up again next year for a show like this, and hope to, make all of the FTN community some money here on SuperDraft. So good luck to you, sir. Good luck everybody else. We appreciate you tuning in, and good luck this week. Goodbye.